Shalom. This week we are starting Book of Numbers, Sefer BaMidbar, Parshat BaMidbar. It's a very momentous occasion, time for a change. We're starting the fourth book of the Torah, and so it's a good time for us to take stock and pause and review our position in this world, since our position in this world is so impacted by what we're reading in the Torah. Indeed, the weekly portion is a beacon of light that tells us, really should be instructing us what's going on in our lives. So when we pause to review the whole sequence of events, we began the Torah in Sefer Bereshit. We read the Genesis narrative. We read about the creation of the world, the forefathers, the descent into Egypt. And we read the book of Exodus, which begins with the bondage in Egypt and the redemption from Egypt, the instructions for the tabernacle. And then we had an interruption, really, in the flow of the narrative with the book of Vayikra. The book of Leviticus, really what we like to call the heart of the whole Torah, the instructions for the greatest challenge that faces the Jewish people: how to live in this world for God, how to serve Him, and how to see to it that the light of the divine presence remains in this world. That's the whole secret of the divine service reflected in the book of Vayikra. And now, back to business, as it were. Beginning the book of Numbers, people of Israel united as one man, traveling around the tabernacle with the Ark of the Covenant, as it were, the holy temple in modest form in their midst, united as one man with their face towards the promised land, getting ready to go into the land of Israel. The book of Numbers starts with a census, counting all the Jews, because every single individual has a name. Every single person is so precious. Every single person is different one from the next. Every single individual has his own particular task, own particular assignments in the body of the whole, seeing to it that together the nation brings the light of the divine presence into the world, marches into the land of Israel. And the book of Numbers is a story of a generation that was so righteous, that was so above this world, that had so many accomplishments and so many failures. It's a book that details the story of this amazing generation, the generation of the desert. But again, since everything in the Torah is really about us, the stories that we're going to be reading, the book of Numbers, it's really about our generation, about our opportunity now to enter into the land of Israel. So again, the parsha begins with the counting of the children of Israel, as if God is saying, okay, who's going? Who's ready? Who is with us now as we prepare to go into the land of Israel? Now, our sages tell us that the Torah was given with three things: with fire, water, and the desert. These three motifs, these three elements are essential in the whole scenario of the giving of the Torah that we'll be observing soon, the festival of Shavuot. Fire and water and the desert. And indeed, the whole iconography of the desert is an integral part of understanding the process of receiving the Torah, of living a life dedicated to Hashem, of studying the Torah, because the desert represents a certain kind of no man's land, a certain kind of place that's abandoned, that's lonely, that's off the beaten path. It's only in a place like this that a person can humble himself and empty himself out of all of his own particular agenda and ego in order to become a receptacle to receive the light of the Torah. So there is a whole profound lesson that our sages teach us regarding the significance of the desert and the whole idea of this tremendous generation, the generation of knowledge, the generation that received the Torah, traveling these years throughout the desert, honing their commitments to Hashem, practicing their observance of the Torah, and really getting ready to be this nation that can bring the light of God into the world. But when we go back to the very first verse of the Torah portion, we read, Hashem spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting on the first of the second month in the second year after their exodus from the land of Egypt, saying. And the verse emphasizes that Hashem spoke to Moshe in the desert of Sinai, in the Oel Moed, in the tent of meeting. And we find that Hashem spoke to Moshe in Egypt. He spoke to Moshe at Sinai. And now that the children of Israel are together and ready to face the task and moving towards the promised land, he only speaks to him from the tent of meeting, from what was to become the holy temple, the tabernacle. And this whole equation, this scene is so powerful, the idea of the tent of meeting from where Hashem communicates with Moshe in the middle of the desert. Because, again, what the desert really represents is the capacity that every person has for complete unraveling, for going to places that are not civilized within our own psyche. It's a wilderness. It's a place where there are no boundaries. It's a place where the base raw instinct of a person could actually, God forbid, take over, and a person could lose his moral compass, his boundaries. The Torah specifically, our sages tell us, was given in the desert in order to teach us not only that a person has to be able to have the other things that the desert represents, the humility, the emptiness, the lack of ego, in order to make the Torah real and as an acquisition on a personal level, but also it was given in the desert because the whole goal, the whole purpose of a Torah existence, of living with the Torah on a personal level, is to overcome the capacity, the aspect of the desert within each and every one of us, that place that is raw, that is barren, and that is foreboding, and that is perhaps even base. That's exactly where the Torah was given. And what's in the midst of the desert? What's in the midst of the camp of Israel as Israel navigates through all of these vicissitudes of the desert? The tabernacle. Hashem speaks to Moshe from the tent of meeting in the middle of the desert. And that iconography is exactly the purpose of the Holy Temple in the world, because the whole world is that desert-like wilderness, devoid of the divine image, devoid of everything that's right and good. The world is a barren wasteland. And it's only the light of the Torah that transforms the world into the place that it was meant to be through our participation. It's man that is called upon to give this finishing touch to the world by bringing the light of God into the world. So this imagery of Israel moving throughout the desert with the tabernacle in its midst on its way to the promised land is exactly the purpose and the task of the people of Israel in the world, to bring this light into the world and hopefully to accomplish it, to go into the promised land, to bring the temple to the forefront of reality, to establish it, to create it, to erect it, and thus to signal the whole world that it's possible to actually live in this world focused completely on the presence of God and to uplift everything. And so sometimes the book of Numbers is referred to whimsically by some of our sages as the book of mistakes, the book of failures, because as we're going to see, as we continue throughout the Parshiot, there were so many ironic, difficult to understand mistakes that great generation committed, because on the one hand, they were so high and they were so totally committed to godliness in this world. But on the other hand, they were flawed, they were human, and they made many mistakes. But ultimately, history repeats itself. Ultimately, we are living the lives of our forefathers. The Torah, we always teach, is not what we're reading, not about previous generations. It's about us. So this is really our opportunity to fix those mistakes and to march through the desert surrounding the tabernacle, hearing the voice of Hashem emanating from the tent of meeting, and to march straightforwardly and unabashedly into the land of Israel to establish the temple. And it's no coincidence that voices that we hear in the world today are calling on us to give up this vision, to recede, to back off, to back away from the goal of marching into the land of Israel and making it a permanent acquisition and establishing the temple and showing the world the reality of God. That's the mission of the Jewish people, no less. And that's exactly what the call of the book of Numbers is, for the Jewish people to prepare themselves to get ready. Who's going? Begins with a census. Who wants to be counted amongst those that are ready to march into the land of Israel?